it all. Crypto nana, exit liquidity, hodl nana, dump it all.
Crypto nana, exit liquidity,
Dump it all.
hodl nana, dump it all. From the day we arrive on the blockchain and blinking step into the trade, there's more to lose than can never be won, more to dump than can never be saved. Influencers, tweets, and the noobs all follow, buying high, selling low, what a game. But the boomers know, and Sailor, he knows that the dump is coming. It's all the same. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Some of us fall by the wayside, and some of us soar to the stars, but the influencers always win with the Lambos and their cars. So beware of the pump and the inevitable dump, for the cycle continues and the news get wrecked. Nana, exit liquidity, hodl nana, dump it all. Crypto nana, exit liquidity, hodl nana, dump it all. Crypto nana, exit liquidity, dump it all. hodl nana, dump it all. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Dump it all.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
for you, Banks.
Listening to different podcasts, like in a whole different reality, which they think completely different things about Bitcoin.
They have got my money in their banking system. I should be able to access it, right?
Appler is live.
There's a good number of fucking, like, pretty smart B cashers.
Are we live, or I don't know how this works?
Okay. Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 167, BCH-1 and Blaze Embers, featuring J Master Pig. Today is Sunday, the 16th of November, 2025. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing. On the price, BCH on the road to top 10. We've moved up into rank 13. One BCH buys $496.43
nice
US scam cents, which is flat. One BTC sat only 192.8 BCH sats. We're back under the 200 to 1 there. Nice to see. And one ETH buys 639 megasats. So we're up against ETH as well. 30-day Selene users at 600 and the Tokenaut TVL at 12,403 BCH. Looking good there, slowly growing the DeFi industry. Our guest today, J Master Pig, is from the rebranded somewhat SLP Foundation and now representing BCH-1. Welcome to the show, man. How do you get into Bitcoin?
Oh God, how did I get into Bitcoin? Wow, I don't even know where to start with that. So basically, I knew about Bitcoin a long time ago, like almost like my first experience with Bitcoin was actually Mount Gox. I was trying to buy Adderall off the Silk Road. That's basically how I like discovered it. But back then, I didn't really like. I just thought it was kind of like World of Warcraft money. I didn't really think like I didn't really understand like the technology or like why it was revolutionary. Obviously, I lost a bunch of money on Mount Gox. On Silk Road, because I actually had like a bunch of BTC on Silk Road, and then Silk Road got shut down. So I didn't get back into it till I think maybe like 2014 or something like that. 2015. And that's because at the time I was selling nootropics online. I used to run a nootropics e-commerce website called ChemCorp. It's no longer there, but I just started. I had all these issues of payment gateways, and then like PayPal like took like tons of my money and like locked it, and I basically had the whole experience. So I actually came from like actual use case of I started taking crypto. I started taking Bitcoin because I just kind of like, okay, I ran out of options. And then I started taking Bitcoin, and that's kind of like how I got into it. Though it was still like maybe one more year after I started like, the funny thing about that is that it was so hard to get people to not use credit cards and use Bitcoin, because that's actually like way harder than people think. Like the friction with that is quite high. I actually built like a custom plugin, and basically like when people go on the website, there's a chatbot, and the chatbot would like explain like how to actually get like coins and stuff like that. But it was only like after I think more like ironically that was like maybe 10 or 20% on my actual like in terms of payments
Revenue.
But then that ended up being like a lifeline, because I was like lucky enough that like everything rose, right? Like around that point, like I think that winter between I think 2013 to 2016, I think, and then it just like went above like $1,000, right? Dollars.
Yes.
And so like that, ironically, like because I got all my like money like kind of stolen by like banks and stuff like that, because I guess they class you as a high risk thing, like high risk payment processor, and then there are all these like scams, and basically they take the money and then you just never see the money again. So that kind of sucked. And that's basically like how I really got into this whole, I'm one of those people that really did get screwed over by like the banks and PayPal and Stripe and all these companies, and that's actually how I got into Bitcoin. And obviously, I guess at the time I got in, the block size debate was like the thing, and then yeah, I just sided with BCH. I guess basically, I mean, obviously because I used to be a merchant, that like aligned, right? Like in terms of like, well, these guys are like pro business, and these guys just like want like small blocks that can't scale. So
It's very interesting, actually. Now that we've had the show for so long and I've interviewed so many different people and asked them about their Bitcoin origin story, it's true that that's a common theme is
yeah.
that people say, well, I was a merchant and I was using it for some or all of my payments because I thought it was cool or because I needed it for this reason or that reason. And then block size war came around and I was like, obviously big blocks. Obviously we're not in the business of interviewing small blockers, so although we've had a couple, but I don't know that we really have heard that so much. So maybe there is actually some truth to the fact that there's this common dichotomy that the small blockers was like the tech node runners and the big blockers was the the corporate merchants and businesses. Now that's a little bit of a scam narrative that was made around Roger and Coinbase and etc. like that, but it really is still striking at something true, which is that the big blockers were the more pragmatic commerce focused ones, right?
Yeah, definitely. That definitely was the vibe. And also, frankly, speaking like I think the BCH community was just a lot cooler. Like all the fun people were like at the BCH side. So, I think that there was definitely, I mean, it was a long time ago. There was definitely that, like, it was like, which is the more fun community. I mean, it had great energy. I mean, BCH in the beginning. I mean, right now, obviously, like it's recovering and getting back to, certain places. But yeah, in the beginning, it was like, I mean, I don't know. Were you there at the
Yeah, I was
first?
involved. Yeah, I was like there with, after the split and stuff like that. Probably not immediately as it happened. I wasn't in, the Slack groups or whatever that was going on. I was reading RBTC for sure. And I was clearly on the big block side. Like I sold all my BTC for BCH and everything. And I was definitely involved in that initial period. It did. I mean, it was kind of chaotic though, because as well as the rest of the world, the BCH community itself didn't really know. Like it was on one of those what's it called, sliding doors moments, where it was like there was one very clear possibility that BCH just rockets up the rankings. Everyone discovers that's the real Bitcoin. BTC hash rate dies. BCH talks to the exchanges and everyone's like, oh shit, this is actually the real Bitcoin. We're going to rebrand it. Big block, like small blocks is a scam. And it just all went that way. But then it was also kind of like, well, if that doesn't happen, what then, what next? And that kind of was the way that things went. But because for that period between August, the split, and maybe kind of August the next year, it was kind of in the balance whether it could go one way or the other way. And as it worked out, it didn't come off at that time, and the community learned a lot of hard lessons. But it was a very weird, like an interesting vibe in that sense, right? Because, and I guess crypto's always had, especially Bitcoin, early Bitcoin has a lot of risk takers, a lot of contrarians. So I don't think the BCH community was not put off by that. Like, of course, the small blockers are the more conservative, risk-averse ones. That was like, we're not going to change anything. And then they did change things, but they were pretending that they were not changing anything. We can't raise the block size. It's too risky, blah, blah, blah. Whereas the BCH community, especially, before all the BSV people left and stuff, was just so much just like, let's just get this happening,
Yeah, actually, I wrote some notes for this podcast, and I was like, I'm gonna not do memory lane too much, because obviously, like with my history and how long I've been in BCH, I could easily like constantly just go back about like, oh, this happened in the past and that happened in the past. So I think on that point, I think yes, it had really good energy in the beginning. It was really chaotic, but what I really like about where BCH is at now compared to how it was in those days. In those days, it was very like flamey. Like you had like You remember, right? In those days, yeah, like the community was larger. There was a lot of people, but there was a lot of like crazy people too. Like it was like just like people would just stay and stuff, and then you would start like you have all these flame wars, and so it was like a larger community, but it also was like not really
Divided.
like
Yeah.
yeah, it was really divided, and it was
Quarrelsome.
like yeah, I wouldn't know, like I wouldn't say fractured, but it's almost like it was too like rowdy to actually be like like a
Coherent.
community.
Functioning.
Yeah, yeah, coherent. It was incoherent. It was kind of incoherent, right? Because remember, like you had like like the BSV guys, and basically they worship like CSW. That was like the whole thing. And then you had like like Amari's gang, and all this stuff. And it was like so many, like they get BCA and Bitcoin Cash Association. Like some people didn't like Paul and this kind of stuff. Like now, I feel like with the current BCH community, there has been like this sort of reorganization in some way that I guess number one, a lot of those people that were bad just kind of like left, naturally, just out of, for example, like Amari was like, okay, I'm gonna just tax everyone 10%, and then like now he's like out, so I think like not going back, not doing memory lane too much. I think
It's good. It's good. We can have a little bit of it. On this show, I'm always trying to get that vibe, right? That's why we have that section at the start, especially people who've been in the community a long time, because otherwise this history gets lost if it's not recorded.
That's true,
if there
that's
wasn't
true.
the people who were there to talk about it, and I always have new listeners joining the show, of course, too. They don't know anything about this, but if they go and listen to some of the episodes, they really get like the storytelling from the history, and the culture accumulates over time, right? So it's important. You can have free reign, go for it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit more about myself. So after that, I actually first started in BCH doing like Hong Kong meetups. I wasn't like actually like in the BCH community. I think maybe we're very similar. Jeremy was like, I slowly got more and more into it. At the beginning, it wasn't like like it was like I had my main business, and then I had like I was like interested in BCH as like a side thing. Um, and then I guess SLP came along. I made a Spice token with another guy called Super Nerd. That was like I think it's still pretty. It was a pretty successful token, I think. And then I just did SLP stuff. Like I did SLP NFTs. I did with Kasumi. Not a Kasumi, JT Jungle. The Jungle NFT marketplace with like the anime like waifus, and you could like trade these NFTs around. And yeah, I did work for the SLP Foundation. We got we got like USDT on SLP. So that was pretty cool. And I guess like we're working with like Bitcoin.com and a bunch of other things to try to like there was kind of like quite a lot of work done on SLP. And then then I went to do like NFT game. It was basically it's funny because I went to a conference last year, and basically everyone was like, I went to some like blockchain games meetup or gathering event, and basically like everyone was talking about like Telegram games, and I'm like, wow, like I was just like 4 years like ahead. Like nobody was doing like Telegram games, so it was like kind of crazy because I basically did like NFTs, and it was like a Telegram game. It's a 3D game, but you could play directly from your wallet with SLP NFTs, and it's just like actually it's just like it's too ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Like that was before the last NFT craze cycle. So I already was like doing the NFT stuff, and then obviously that like blew up, right? So it was kind of funny because like it's like only now people are going like, oh, like Telegram is like a really cool platform for like making games. And so and then after that and then I guess I got a little disenfranchised like a lot of people with BCH because basically what happened with like CoinFlex, and so I guess for us, so for us, I think we built I like it's so crazy because I see people doing this now, like with the new apps, like when you make an app like Enter the Sphere, and there's no infrastructure. We really built like the NFT-1 like infrastructure like from scratch. Like there was like nothing. There was like no tooling, like for minting NFTs, for whatever, for grouping them properly, using the NFT one group function. And yeah, so and then obviously a lot of work went into that, right? Like the SLP like NFT marketplace, SLP like economy, and SLP exchange, I think cryptophil. And then like BCH comes along and they're just like, oh, we're gonna do EVM. So everyone had to like swap over and like do EVM as well. And then obviously like, oh, just as that was going, to be fair, from the beginning of that, I was already like very like, because remember like in the beginning they were like, oh, we're gonna get the decentralized bridge out in like 3 months. And then after 3 months, they're like, no. And then just each month went on. Is this still a central? So basically, if it's a centralized bridge, it's not really like, you know what I mean? It's not a DEX.
That's a bit risky. Yeah.
It's not. It's basically like a centralized exchange. It's not a. That's not an actual bridge. That's just you're just masking it. So that was always like kind of like a big risky point about the whole thing. And for whatever reason, the decentralized bridge just never happened. I don't know what happened with that.
That's a good question. I mean, partially at the time, like now we're in a world where cash tokens have shipped and been out for a few years. The Velma VM limits, Layla is like locked in. Yesterday, I forgot to mention that, but we'll talk about that. And so now it probably would even be more feasible than it was then to make a bridge between the two, in some way. Like that scripting was still nowhere near as advanced. There wasn't as good tooling and stuff. So I'm sure that partially contributed. I think maybe it also was just a question of kind of high hopes, like that maybe being a little optimistic. And sometimes when you tape things together, good enough is good enough until it all blows up, which is exactly what happens. I think there's probably a combination of factors.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so basically, I then I got some funding for Enter the Sphere like outside of BCH. Actually, it's kind of crazy. This is one of the things that I am quite interested in talking about. I've like obviously like I went on like the proof of stake like Ethereum EVM like bandwagon. Like there was a point in time just like, oh god, like I don't want to do BCH anymore. And then so the crazy thing is like, for example, we went to like Near Protocol. And we just did like bare bones, whatever application, like a presentation. And then like, this is how much money is it like outside of like BCH? They were just like, oh, here you go, just have 100K. Like just, it wasn't even like there was no conditions. It was just like they just gave it. Okay, and then I got another like more money later. But it was just like, wow, like you need, like when you're outside, you realize these VC funded like blockchains, they have so much money. It's like insane. Like there was once like, I think Near Protocol like did a transparency thing, and you cannot believe like how much money the people that are working on those foundations like are making. Like even if it's like, I think I saw something like, oh, like some like social media like just moderator or something. And he's like on like 150K a year, just like holy shit. Like it's so crazy. No, so this is like important because part of it I feel like is I had the same thing when I was in BCH, that unless you kind of go outside, you don't realize like the scale of things and how like things are easier outside when there's just like money to do stuff. And I understand that this is not really like, how do I put it? I wouldn't like say that would, obviously BCH is not a VC coin and this kind of stuff, but it does like it does kind of make you realize, okay, like, I thought about this recently. It's like you do want people to be paid. And I think like you should encourage people that are paid to do voluntary work and help others. But at the end of the day, like people getting their bills paid like helps a lot,
Yeah.
And I think like I think with BCH, and a lot of kind of open source stuff I see as well, having worked in a lot of that. So yeah, after BCH, I worked on so after HSC, I worked on a decentralized AI inference protocol. It's called RBS. You can look at it. But the co-founder kind of like had a meltdown, so it's not like going so well. But the tech is all there, so it's all open source. Like people can fork it and stuff. I also did Amica. It's like basically like AI companion VRM thing. You can like chat and has emotions. I'm working on making that mobile app, so that'd be pretty cool. And yeah, and then at some point I was talking to a guy, and he's like, we were talking about like BCH, and then he's like, you should come back. And then he actually said to me like, it was quite interesting, because what he said to me was this. He was like, you just need to you need to realize you're looking at BCH from like a angle of how the community like reacted to you, or like all the stuff that you said that you're lucky to miss, like all that like ABC, like all the drama.
Yes.
And which is kind of funny, because I was one of the people that like coordinated like the campaign to like basically like beat Amari. I still have like the chat group with like Roger and everyone just kind of like talking, and basically like how do we actually make this happen. Yeah, but he said to me like, you just need to stop looking at you need to look at BCH like a token. Like if you would look at any token, don't look at BCH from the eyes of someone that's like had so many like community like good and bad experience, and you're bringing like. So once I like sort of took that sort of baggage off, it's not tainted by my experience on BCH anymore. Basically, I actually looked at it and be like, this is actually like really cool. It is actually like a really, and obviously like all the stuff that's been worked on and stuff like that, it's all very impressive. I mean, I feel kind of guilty because I think like I'm coming in at quite a good time. In terms
nothing
of
wrong
like,
with that. That's how it should be. We want to be
like,
creating that environment for people to jump in. That's what you want.
Yeah, like in terms of like, I actually look at all the like stuff that's done on Bitcoin research and all the work that's gone into the chips and stuff like that, and I'm just like, wow, I just like came in like basically after like all this. So one of the things I'm very careful about is I really don't want to come across like, oh, like I know what's good for like the BCH community. Like I feel like that's sort of like the wrong approach. Especially, I think like I think like it could come across the wrong way, in the sense that people will be like, okay, you've not been around for a while, you don't really know like how much work people have done. So I think I'm quite careful about that. Yeah, and then I talked to Op Return, and then I started brainstorming this thing, and then the BCH-1 thing, and then he's and then we sort of agreed that the best way to do this is not to like lecture the community, but to just kind of like do what you think like would work and would be good like for BCH. And some people are not going to like it, and some people are going to like it. And the idea that I am, because I guess like how I used to do BCH is I was very like outspoken and very, I wouldn't say political, but like get involved. And like, for example, I would get involved in like the block time like argument and all this stuff. And sort of my new approach of doing BCH is like, just support everyone equally. You do your thing, and you just kind of like, like proof of work, right? You just like prove it by showing that it's doable or it's possible, but not like, telling people, oh, like this is how you do it, this is how you do it. And I think that's the best way to like approach it. And that's definitely like how I'm doing it different like this time compared to before.
I mean, I think that's the right approach. That's certainly the approach I try and do. I mean, the BCH community, like we've talked about, it certainly had its trauma and so forth. And what has come out of that has been, in a good way, the concept that people are much less tolerant of anybody talking shit, right? Like it's kind of, okay, if you want to have a big opinion, which people are in general, less willing to do now than they probably were in the past, but to the extent that you are, like I'm sometimes, have opinions. It's like you've got to be able to back that up with like, look, here's the work that I've been doing, and here's what I'm doing is not only I'm putting in a lot of work, but it's also making a difference, right? People have got over that thing, like, because you can have somebody who's doing a lot of work, pushing a boulder up a hill that's not really changing anything, and then feeling self-righteous about, well, I'm working so hard. Like, nobody cares at the end of the day. It's good to be working hard, but if you're doing the wrong thing, it doesn't matter. Like, why should we listen to what you've got to say if you can't make your own thing work, let alone be concerned about what anybody else is doing, right? So I think that's a good change that the community has been in, and obviously the more we can encourage that. Also with like the someone memes, I really, I'm always trying to stamp down on, and I'm glad to see that everybody else, does too as well. This concept of coming in, why doesn't you don't see that as much anymore? We really need this, we really need that. Okay, well, are you building it? No. Are you going to pay someone to build it? No. Okay, well, are you doing anything about it? Are you getting in touch with anyone? No, then just shut up. Like, we don't have time for that. And that does a lot to get a more positive vibe,
Yeah, there's definitely it's definitely like, I think like culturally, it seems the community is a lot more mature than it was, and it's for like those little things. I think it was either Cheapy or John that started that, like somebody, like it became like a joke. Like it's always like, oh, somebody should like do this on somebody. It's like, well, okay, like, somebody should be you,
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. And just before we get into the BCH-1 stuff, I've got a couple things I want to touch on there. You mentioned about the SLP tokens, which for newer listeners was sort of the pre-iteration to the tokens that then went through the smart BCH, and then now we're on cash tokens. So in the end, that didn't really work out, but clearly it's something that you felt was important, and maybe, like you said, you were ahead of the curve on that one. Do you have any reflections on cash tokens as a successor to that, given it's a big bet in the way that some people at the time were a little bit concerned, like, oh, we're doing this whole new thing, we've failed these last two systems, is this just another round of the same thing? Like, are we just reinventing the wheel over and over again? I was kind of like, no, cash tokens is going to be the one promised token solution.
Okay, so I think cash tokens has to be it. Like, any design, any schema, any protocol, or any sort of like contract type stuff is always going to have trade-offs. And one of the dumbest things about what happened on a BCH under Amari is he was really against tokens, as you know. And so like basically a lot of time was wasted on like basically there were 7 different token protocols for proposed protocols for Bitcoin Cash, obviously based on colored coins, from BTC, and like any of those would have worked fine. Like, it doesn't really matter what if they just executed that, and they had like SLP actually came along because they couldn't come to an agreement. So basically, there was never like native tokens, and then SLP was just kind of built on this thing of, okay, let's just use the op return and build an entire protocol. And then obviously, because it's not on chain, the indexing and all that became, and then there's a bunch of stuff in there that could have gone better as well. Like Bitcoin.com like made their own indexer. There was like 3 different indexers, and they weren't syncing with each other. But yeah, like I think like cash tokens, there's no such thing as a perfect design. Like, okay, if I like there's some things in SLP that I think are better, like for example, like standardized metadata versus like having this kind of like you can put whatever you want type of thing. But that being said, I think like we've done we would like try so many like token things. Like I think like I think cash tokens has to be like it. This is like native, this is on-chain. It's good enough for like most things. And there are things, obviously there are some things that might not be efficient with it, but compared to the other two, like for example, SLP was always tainted by like indexing problems because of it's just not native. And a bunch of other things. But and then obviously like SBCH wasn't really, I mean, it's like I don't even know what to call it. It's just
Bit
kind of like
hybrid, yeah, side
it's kind of like
chain.
it's kind of like garbage, right? Like if they had the decentralized bridge, then it wouldn't be garbage. But the way they had it is just kind of garbage. They just basically you just spin out basically like a EVM chain with like I don't know. I think they had like 3 nodes. It's pretty bad
Yeah.
actually. Um, and you're not using like actual like BCH like tech. It's actually just like EVM, but you've put an EVM like layer on top of this. Now you don't even have a bridge. It's not really even like bridging between like the BCH like layer. So I think I'm really excited about cash tokens. I think once you get like a few like kind of like star token projects on there, I think it really take off. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And what about the other upgrades that you maybe weren't as involved in while you were off, doing other stuff? So we had ABLA, the block size increase, 2020 algorithm, 2024. We've got the Velma with the VM limits all being tweaked and adjusted and adding bigger integers earlier this year. And then we have Layla, which locked in yesterday and will be going live May next year with functions, loops, PayToScript, and Bitwise. Where do you feel we're at with all those?
It's pretty impressive, honestly, because like with the extended capability and the sizes, and I think it's also like quite good because it's not like going down. I always think like remember there's that BSC thing, and then Craig came on and he was like, "Oh, we're gonna like do like the blockchain computer or something," and basically we'll like put fucking everything on like the blockchain. It was pretty bad. Weren't they spammed with like just junk? I can't remember.
Weather data, BSV weather data.
Yeah, right. BSC weather data, and then I think it's quite good that BCH has kind of like struck a really like nuanced middle ground between like you want some ability to have stuff on chain, not as restricted as Bitcoin Core in terms of like pretty much not being able to do anything because the block size and like limiting certain opcodes or not having like check data sig and all this stuff. And like I think it's quite impressive. I think like with the upgrades that are coming in 2026, and even with the upgrades up till like now, I think you have like so many primitives and so many things you can use the VMware to build that honestly I think at this point it's just about like getting the middleware. So obviously you need middleware like cache script and that kind of stuff to like really be able to compile those smart contracts. But like I think in reality is like actually with the capabilities now, I think almost the sky's the limit. I mean, you can do like loans, you can do like options, you can do vaults, you can do stuff they do on like Gnosis, like vaults and basically all sorts of distribution mechanisms. You can do something like a streaming solution like Sablier. I think we talked about that on one of the chats that you could do like a thing where you do I might do this for the hackathon, but I'm actually basically I it might be harder than I think, so that's why I'm not but I will do something for the hackathon. But basically you could do things like having stretch goals, but then each stretch goal is basically like linked to like a token distribution. So a token distribution, and then it can distribute to some addresses, and then some addresses those are like locked, like time locked.
Ongoing
they're
funding, like multi-stage
right.
funding
So
kind of campaigns.
so yeah, exactly. And so like you could, because one of the big issues of like the whole okay, like let's give you like like 200 BCH to do something is that well you get that you don't have a stream. So like basically it's like, well, I don't know, like if I did a token, I have like 10% of the token, it's all like unlocked, right? I can just dump everywhere, slow dump everyone. So I could just always kind of just like run off, right? But if you make it like locked and stream it over like 2 or 3 years, there's like incentive to constantly like not screw this up because you still need to like make it like monthly. So yeah, I think like it's honestly it's way more impressive than I could have imagined, because the last time, like the last I left, I guess when was SBC? When was the Coinflex thing
It was in
with
the
Mark
middle of
Lamb?
it was in the middle of 22, right? It was a bit over 3 years ago.
Okay, yeah,
June,
and
July
yeah,
22, I think. Yeah.
it's so funny because I've met Mark Lamb like a couple of times, and he's such a sweet guy. Like it's weird.
All right. And what about looking a little further into the future? The one sort of proposal that is maybe on the cards for 2027 would be the 1 minute blocks ideas. Do you have a bit of a take on that?
Oh God, I really don't. Actually, I have read the whole thread on the whole thing, and it's just something I don't want to get into because I feel like one of the things that BSC did a lot of damage to BCH was that it took these, like the check data sig like argue. Remember how that blew up, and then everyone was just arguing about like technical stuff, and it's like all this technical stuff on GitHub that nobody on, like, for example, I think I'm more like the application layer, marketing layer kind of guy. Like nobody like me should be like really commenting on like what the block, what was the block speed,
The block
was the
time.
argument block,
Yeah, the block time.
block time. But I will say that from most people I've talked to, a lot of people seem to support like faster blocks, and I think like especially like I think there's so much opportunity for BCH and DeFi, and I think faster blocks, if it solved that one thing for like DeFi, I think that's, yeah. I mean, but in terms of like, oh, like what do I think, or the technical, I don't understand enough about it technically to be like, okay, like I have an opinion. Because I know, for example, like, okay, like you can have like faster blocks, but that doesn't actually mean it. You just sort of like fractionalize the security. You're just confirming it like quicker, but you're not. Um, One thing that does kind of like, I don't know what you think about this, Jeremy. One thing that was interesting was I saw like someone posting, like, oh, BCH is like the fastest like blockchain. And I feel like, what do you think? I don't really feel like that should be a thing, because that's kind of like saying, oh, doing like an Ethereum transaction, it's pending and it's like fast, right? I mean, it's not confirmed. So you don't have the first. I mean, I understand the argument with zero conf, but I feel like that could be a bit almost like misleading a little bit, saying that Bitcoin Cash is really fast because zero conf is fast. What do you think to that?
Well, I think it's just one of those nuanced things where I think some people definitely rely a little too heavily on this. Zero conf works and it's fine and that's great. And like it's instant, and that's great. But as taken to an extreme, that's a bit of like BCH maximalist cope, basically, which is ignoring the fact that, yeah, zero conf is great and it works fine. And especially if you're heavily into BCH and you're only using BCH to BCH services that all operate on zero conf, then it is fine. If you're not also trading, millions of dollars, that's fine. So that's great. But on the other hand, I think people who over-index on that, they kind of ignore the fact that the conversation is going on by default among the most invested people. It's a Pareto thing, right? So 80% of the users are the ones who just make a BCH transaction once a year to Binance. There's loads of people like that. And they are not getting in the discussion. They are not saying, hey, it would be great if this could be faster or this could be fixed. So you actually kind of have to cater to the users that are not making their voices heard as much as the ones who are. And as far as I can tell, there is no actual downside to lowering provided there's not a centralization increase at mining, which I don't think there would be, or not a substantial one in any case. If setting that aside, people who like things at 10-minute blocks, their experience does not get worse with 1-minute blocks if they can still just wait for 10 confirmations and have the same level of security. And people make this argument like, well, if we slash the block time to 1/10, then exchanges will increase the requirement by 10x. So it will effectively be the same. And there's two really strong counters to that, which is one, who cares? Like, then what about all the people who did not make that change? It's improved. Like, the experience is improved in all the cases where the exchanges aren't like, they're not. I think it would be unlikely would decrease it from 10 to 1 minute, and then they would 20x their confirmations. If they're happy with it how it is, at the worst, they would set it to the same. But either way, you still get a benefit because it's much nicer for users to see, oh, I got my first confirmation, and then see it ticking up in the meantime, rather than, because the worst is like one conf is a big jump for a lot of user experience, because waiting in limbo is the worst. So
I agree.
It cuts that down, you know?
Yeah, so even like in terms of just like the user experience, or like just like if you think about program loops, it's just like it's just executing like faster and more like it's less. Obviously, you're like, you know, security is the same. You can argue, you know, but like for example, that looping thing, I think like is quite important for like especially a VMware. And you know, if we're gonna do all these like functions and stuff like that on Bitcoin Cash, I think there's a really strong argument for it. It's just that I really think I'm not like technical enough to really sort of like I know about like the orphan blocks and all that stuff. I don't really have like enough of an understanding of the technology to really have a comment on it. But I would say like you tell people like for example, you can tell people that like, oh, Bitcoin Cash is like really fast, but then you know you go on SideShift and you know you wait like 30 minutes to get like one confirmation, right? And I think like I think you have a really good point there. Like if people see the confirmations like ticking up, at least you kind of like know, okay, like I am getting confirmed, rather than like sitting there and going like, oh, okay. Like and obviously like BCHers understand like innately like how unlikely a zero conf doesn't work. But I think for people outside of BCH, it would look like to them BCH is like slow, and that's kind of like not a good
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of heavily in support of it, and I'm always, you know, not trying to push that opinion onto people. But as far as I can tell, it's close. It's not exactly true, but it's close to a strictly better upgrade, you know, in terms of video games and board games and stuff like that. Sometimes people talk about something is strictly better if there's, you know, one weapon that you can get and another weapon which is exactly the same, but it's also cheaper or more powerful or has more options or something. Like, you don't lose anything if you can upgrade. You always should. 1 minute blocks is similar to that. The 10 people who want things at 10 minutes and want to wait 10 comms, they can still do that. That's exactly the same. But for everybody in the situations where it is better, it's much better. So of course there is actually a trade-off. So it's not strictly better in that sense. There is the mining centralization, but provided we feel like the mining centralization is not a big deal, which I don't think it really is, at least from the data I've seen. But I would love a very in-depth research into that. But I think it's a little bit overblown as well, because the BTC guys are terrified of changing absolutely anything in general, and they especially hate things that would quote unquote centralize the miners. Of course, that's bad, and you want to avoid that. But people have got away for years in their discussions where they just say this covenants could centralize mining. They have no data. They have no proof. They just throw that out there. Like bigger blocks would centralize mining. They say that as well too. Did they ever produce any reports and come up with the numbers? Like how much is an extra, storage drive versus the cost of electricity and running a whole mining farm? Like I've never seen any research, anything into that. It's just the biggest red herring argument that is unsubstantiated. So I think people have a little bit of too much fear about the mining side of it, but that's just my opinion. And
there are other chains that have shorter block times. So it's not like
it's not like a way out there wacky idea.
right. It's not like nobody's done it. It's not like nobody's actually shorten the block time. So
in fact, nearly everyone has. BCH
in fact, actually, I was gonna say that I can't really figure it outside. And Yeah, I was gonna say something, but I forgot what it was. Huh.
All right, well, maybe it'll
My-
come to
my-
you. In any case, let's get on then. So tell us a little bit about BCH-1. So you had the SLP Foundation, and that's now been sort of reworked, I guess, in some way into BCH-1. Blaze started yesterday. It runs for 8 days, and you've partnered up with us on that. So you've helped sponsor the prize pool and everything related to that. And the concept is that we're going to do Blaze now in November, and then sort of in January hand off some of the most promising projects and so forth to the BCH-1 Hackcelerator. So just walk me through step by step how BCH-1 works.
Okay. So basically, I think it's sort of like a hybrid between hackathon and accelerator, because obviously like it's not enough money to be an accelerator. Accelerators like have a lot more money, but I also actually came into it wanting to do like a hackathon, but then I saw Blaze and I was like, why would I just like make another, like, well, you guys are doing it so well already, like, what's the point of this? So there's a weird bug on my fly. Weird fly up. Okay. Yeah, so it's really a BCH1 is really about like an experiment, and it's an experiment that I wanted to approach it in the way that, okay, let me talk about like sort of like the root of basically how I came to the idea. And basically it was really thinking about this whole thing where you have in BCH, there's just kind of like this lack of funding pipeline. I think maybe we'll talk about that later. And so what was the question again? You wanted me
tell
to...
me about BCH-1, the history, how to get started, and what's the objective?
Yeah, so the objective really is at minimum, it basically will be like a accelerator light. So basically we will have applications, we will basically give projects like networks and stuff like that. And so I'm not doing that well. Let me go back to, I think it's easier if I go back to like, okay, like the root of it, right? So basically when I first like looked at doing a hackathon, I realized that that basically a hackathon doesn't really achieve what BCH like needs. And what to me what BCH needs is like, okay, like this is one thing I learned outside of BCH, is that there's a lot of like community building and a lot of like sort of like exposure like for these other blockchains and projects. And it was like kind of like thinking of an idea of like, how do we align all these things in BCH so people that are building stuff have like a route to eventually getting, they have an idea, and then how do you get that like MVP or proof of concept into basically something with business logic and something that could be presented to investors so they can basically build the product and scale up, right? And I realized that like for example, let's get a really good example on BCH. There's so many things on like BCH. Every day I basically get something that I'm just like, wow, I didn't know this existed. Wow, I didn't know that existed. Like I think like last week I suddenly, someone told me about Bitcan, the basically phone book DID solution. And then I found like a DAO protocol that's already been like written like on like smart contracts and stuff. Yeah. And and then I think is it Bitcoin Order suddenly sends you like a GitHub repo of like all the awesome Bitcoin Cash projects. And it's like all like sort of scattered, you got all this. And I was like looking at Pat's stuff, Pat's an amazing developer. And this guy's got like 11 different things, like 11 different like projects, but like not, you wouldn't know how much stuff he's added or like worked on. And BCH-1 really is about like having this signal layer at a high level, having this signal layer to really like broadcast BCH out. So the goal for BCH-1 actually isn't for the it is for the BCH community, but the goal of it is to connect the BCH community and broadcast that out to investors, either old whales that have like left BCH or they're a little more detached now, or like people that are like just outside of BCH and they don't know we have all these cool projects. And what I really want to solve, and so at the minimum, it's basically this thing where I do a phase 1, a phase 2. So it's basically like a 2 week sprint, but it runs 4 weeks. The first week will be like sort of like prep and just building a community. And then there'll be like a 2 week sort of like thing, sort of like sprint where we'll do like weekly, like not workshops, so we'll like get updates. It's a bit different than a hackathon. So we won't really be doing workshops. I mean, we will be doing workshops, but not like technology stuff. So it would be like workshops on like, okay, like for example, I'm hoping that Emergent Reasons will. I've talked to him about like just doing a workshop. It'd be cool just for people to like know, like, okay, like how the general protocols like get funded. Like it's a really interesting thing, right? Like I don't know if people know, but like just sharing that experience. Oh, and one thing that I really found when I was outside of BCH is that like people really like are kind of like ironic because BCH is meant to be like like open and this kind of thing. But people outside of BCH really help each other. Like in terms of like once, say for example, like if I got funding, I will go and help other people and be like, okay, like I will go and help other people like look at projects and be like, okay, these are the investors that I worked with, and then I'm happy to refer you and this kind of thing. So there's sort of like a real pipeline outside, and it's quite open in the sense that if you were looking for funding outside of BCH and you talk to people are just like, okay, like I'm funded already, but I will teach you. I'm happy to tell you what we did and who rejected us and what didn't work and what worked, and who are the people to talk to and like get feedback. And I think like that's because if you think about BCH, like BCH actually needs this more than other protocols. Because BCH, we don't have like the E Foundation of like, I don't know how much money, like 100 million, and you just like chuck it, So we really do need like a way to get capital in, because if we don't have that capital, well, the product we don't have a 10% tax, although that didn't work out that well on eCash. Anyways, ironically, I thought they might kind of, it was kind of funny. We can talk about that later.
That out. You thought they might maybe figure it out.
No, I don't think so. It looks pretty bad. I mean, I saw like everyone's pissed, like because obviously like a lot of people like bought into the eCash thing, and like I was going through the social media, like everyone's just like, wow, like compared the BCH coverage and like what people are saying about BCH and compared to what people are saying about eCash, it's just like, wow, like BCH is completely like just they're the winner for sure. No, so what was I talking about? I think I went autistic.
We're getting the capital alignment, like you said. Other ecosystems have a bit more of a pipeline for getting people the advice and everything they need to start, bringing in some investor funding. And then BCH, as a combination of its history, doesn't really have that. The BTC side got it because they were a bit more on the investor side, and they also got all those price pumps. So then everyone's excited and piling in. BCH has never had that, but we do need it for sure, right?
Yeah, so BCH-1 at the minimum is kind of an experiment. So I'll run the program once, and basically if it doesn't get a lot of traction or people don't like it, I've set up the social media. I'm doing the website. There's going to be lots of cool information there, and it will basically have like a ecosystem. I'm doing this thing where all the like nodes connect like as different projects, so you can see like how the projects connect together on which is your idea, by the way, because you gave me that idea for the although I couldn't quite like I can't do the addresses thing, but it will be something like that where there's a graph, because otherwise like how do you say like okay like the GitHub stuff or products, like how do you like map all that out? I think it'd be quite cool for people to have like a top-down view to see, oh wow, like a lot of stuff's happening. That's what I mean. Like a lot of stuff is happening in BCH. It's just like it's not networked together. But at the minimum, so it's an experiment, and if it doesn't work, I think what I wanted to do is basically to show, okay, like if we add some polish, if we have some like we encourage business intelligence, if we have basically this like broadcasting thing where people like do marketing together. So one of the things I will set up is there's a group that I used before I left, and the group we used to propagate each other's marketing, and that's actually like how we beat Amari. Because we would like I would do these things. I'll be like, okay, you propagate it, then you propagate it, and you propagate it, and then it kind of like goes viral. And so like yeah, at minimum it's just basically like a hackathon accelerator hybrid with more of a focus on the business side of things and investor side of things than like a normal hackathon. But on a sort of like a larger scale, what my vision or what I want to achieve with it is to basically, like what I said earlier, I don't want to like shove it down the community. I just want to kind of like show, okay, there is like a way to make BCH really fucking cool. And like if I can do that, that's basically like what I want to do. Is I want people not for us, but for, because we're already like it would like singing to the choir, right?
Yeah.
Like you can I love BCH, you love BCH, and I love the community and so on and so forth. So, but it's about like people outside seeing and going like, wow, because one of the things that going back to the root, one of the things about the root is I was like looking at it, I was like going, this is kind of crazy, right? Like BCH is like at least a top 20 currency, is definitely like within a top 100. It's on so many exchanges. Trading activity is good, like on exchanges, and it's like why are we constantly getting like skipped over by like investors and people? It's like they look through the list and for some reason like they whatever
blind spot. It's hijacking Bitcoin. It's the censorship and the reputation, but a lot of that, like it's like
I think
said,
so, yeah.
You got somebody who said to you, listen, just forget all this backstory and just pretend that I'm pitching you on a fresh project day one, and you don't know anything about it. And then if you look at it, you would be like, oh shit, there's a lot going on here. It's got a lot of good things going for it. There's no VC investors to unlock and dump on you. It's been resilient since 2009. The community is absolutely fanatical. Like there's all these things that if you look at it divorced from all the history or whatever, then you're kind of like, wow, there's actually a lot to go on here. And we just need to somehow, it's slowly happening over time that we're turning around the ship of public perception, but we just need to get a little bit of that more mindset into people who have a ton of cash, and once they put a little bit of cash into it, then they will be aligned, and suddenly it will influence their decision making with regards to everything else they're doing, right? And it will go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can't remember what I was talking about. I think
so then
lost my train of.
So we're going to get more money into it. So this Hack Accelerate, it's in January, right? It's the 4 weeks. And
okay, actually,
go on.
Sorry, yeah. Oh, no. So basically how I decided to do it after thinking about this, so we'll have phase 1. So phase 1, I'll try to make the application as simple as possible. So you just like connect your GitHub and then you fill a bunch of stuff in. And then we're also not going to, it's not going to be about like new projects, like old projects can apply as long as they didn't like get like funding or something. It's really more, BCH-1 is more really like kind of like a marketing thing. Like it's a way to like really present like these cool things like, Selene Wallet or Paytaka or like, BCH Bulls, and really like kind of like promote, stuff in BCH as like polished things that investors really should be looking at. I mean, there's two effects of that. Number one, obviously that might be good for price because like people will suddenly go like, wow, it's actually like a live, ecosystem. And then number two, that could have the side effect of people that are skipping over BCH and, people like investors outside, and they might be like, okay, I want to invest something in BCH because it might be a good bet. And and one of the things that consistently like happens in BCH is people go like, oh, okay, like, you know, we don't have VC funding, we don't have like a centralized foundation or like, you know, whatever Zcash or these other like protocols have, that they have like this like, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, like the pre-mine or Nexo or whatever, Nexa or whatever. But the thing is, you have to remember like Bitcoin, BTC does this. I mean, they just do equity. You know, they don't do tokens. You know, they don't fund like from the protocol. So it's investable. You could just build companies that sell equity, you know, or sell tokens, and basically have that as like the funding. So this whole thing where I keep hearing about like, oh, there's no money in BCH because we're decentralized, and we basically don't have like we
Big
don't have a
pot.
centralized way of funding stuff, right? I feel like it's definitely more challenging than, you know, for example, like, okay, like Solana or whatever, right? And you have like 10% of all like the tokens, you can just dump the tokens and, you know, like fun stuff. But I think like it has, you know, other chains have like, especially with Bitcoin, they do have companies like, even just like a really random company, and you might hate or not like the projects that get funded in BTC, but yeah, like a Bitcoin startup will easily raise like 2 million like dollars, you know. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that on BCH. And I think what's happening, so one of the things I want to solve with BCH-1 is, I think what's happening is that you a lot of the investors, they get their researchers to do research on Bitcoin Cash. And honestly, if you like, just like as an outsider, you just like type Bitcoin Cash, like, you know, you got like, I talked to Josh. I think I'm gonna do some PRs on updating the main Bitcoin Cash website. Like, there are like broken links, and it's like, I think 4 or 5 years out of date or something. Um, and it's like, I think what happens is these investors just look at like the surface level, and they're not like very smart people. I mean, yeah, yeah, okay, I'll just say they're not like exactly like, you know, experts, you know, and they just read like the stuff that's out there about Bitcoin Cash. They just quickly come to the conclusion like, okay, like, you know, like there's no work on it, or there's, you know, just getting the
It's not
wrong
flashy.
impression.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
surface
yeah, yeah.
level.
So I think, so basically, I think what they do need is just kind of like a flashy, like, why Bitcoin Cash, and basically I'm gonna have this like downloadable document that's like a PDF, and they can just show to, you know, whoever the big guy is, and just be like, okay, here's the research. It actually looks pretty good. Like, rather than like, because I think those guys don't do like really heavy digging. You know, they're not gonna be like going to GitHubs and, you know, going into the community and really dive of like what's going on. So I think like this like high level thing, it is part of what I would like to solve. Yeah.
And then you've told me that you're going to do 3 different categories. I don't know how much
Mhm.
you want to elaborate on that, and just so that people get a sense of what kind of project you're looking for. Because, like you said, we're going to refer some from Blaze, but then
Mm.
it doesn't have to be new projects. Although I guess it could be if you were convincing old projects, as long as they're, you know, maybe they've got some momentum going, but they don't already have, you know, big money coming in, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, does it need to be open source or not? Just talk me through what kind of projects are you actually looking specifically for?
So first, let me go back to the phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 will basically have like onboarding. It'll be applications. It'll be like just getting it, people talking to each other, or like if they need help, and, you know, mentors and that kind of thing. So phase 2, what I've decided is that I won't start phase 2 until I have enough of stuff going on in terms of applications and lots of promising things. So I think I'll only start phase 2 once I'm confident. Like for example, like, okay, like for example, I don't have enough mentors, or I haven't really onboarded like enough like investors and stuff like that. Or like, at least I should get some people to be like, okay, you know, like that'd be cool, you know, to have some projects to show investors and that kind of thing. So I think I won't actually launch phase 2 until I've got like kind of like all the align all the dominoes what I don't know what you call it, like
In the right way.
yeah. Yeah, in the right order. So the free tracks we're looking at. Number one is tooling. Number two is utility, and number three is cash tokens. So those are gonna be the free tracks. And I think it's pretty open. I think so. So tooling is really like just hopefully people. I think BCH is missing a lot of middleware, so hopefully someone will do something like on more of the middleware stuff. Utility, I think that's just like almost like anything that uses like BCH. And cash tokens specifically is gonna be like about encouraging cool projects to like launch their own tokens and use cash token technology to do that. So yeah, those are basically the free tracks that we'll be doing.
And you've got $20,000 in initial funding that you talked
Mhm.
about, which has been sort of inherited from, I don't know, leftover funding at the SLP Foundation or something. So that's a good start. And then from there, things maybe will or will not build up. What are your plans for sort of getting more funding to BCH-1 over time?
So I think basically we'll have to do some fundraising. So we'll probably do like a flip starter, or like I haven't decided whether we do like a fund me, or like we just talk to people and be like, would you just kind of like what you did, would you just like want to chip something in a sponsor? So hopefully that pool, the target for that pool eventually is to double that in size. um and yeah, hopefully that will happen. And I think for BCH1 it goes down two paths. I think path one is like okay, like we do it, but people aren't like super excited or like think it's super cool. And then basically what I'll do at BCH1 is I'll just keep the social media stuff. I mean obviously I built like apps. There's gonna be so I think the three things I'm gonna build. Number one, the cash markets, that's released. And then number two, I want to build a tracking thing, or basically your idea of like just like it's not gonna be like as advanced as the version. I think the version you posted is quite ambitious. So it's gonna start off like a little bit more simple, just like filters and just seeing like all the projects that's being funded. And then number three is I want to do like a launch pad for people to kind of like, it's like a fund me, but the fund me is connected with the tokens. So when I did the Enter the Sphere one, basically I did it with tokens, which was kind of like quite manual because I ended up having to like find the addresses that basically I just send like the tokens manually on a SLP. But I think like that, I think I talked about this whole thing where like, oh yeah, like I think with the tragedy of commons like issue, I think if there are projects that people like contribute BCH to and they get tokens, that's an avenue that if that project becomes like super successful, they'll get something back. So there's kind of like an ROI element to it. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
nice.
so yeah, and so like and then like so like the that's one path. Basically, if people are not too excited about it, I'll still keep it as like a signaling thing for like the entire BCH ecosystem, but it'll be like less ambitious. And if the other path is basically like people are excited about like, oh, like this whole thing of like trying to connect with investors and doing more BD on BCH1 in general, and just like getting the outside world like interested in putting money in BCH. I think I think we discussed this. What I hope is that kind of like how you're doing Bliss, right? Like we talked about this, like every year, like just make it like bigger and more ambitious, and slowly run it again like next year, and then just like but make it like bigger, more funding, or like be like larger scale. And hopefully hopefully if that works, my vision for it really is to sort of like really build like this like pipeline. So basically you end up with really cool projects. We help sort of like identifying like your business model, your pitch deck, what your pitch is going to be like, and then connecting you with investors. and basically not really, because I think this is a thing about BCH. One of the really big things I want to solve is that I think that there'd be a lot more capital if people that are putting money into projects have a chance of seeing some kind of return on investment, like whether that's in equity, that could be in tokens, or some kind of profit, revenue distribution scheme. Like I feel like this thing with I think Fundme and Flipstarter works really great, but basically eventually like projects kind of have to be like self-sustainable. And it's been like that in BCH for a while. Like basically I always feel like you have like a few whales basically funding stuff, but I think like it becomes a little bit like after a while it's like, okay, like it's another year, and then it's like you ask for more money, and then it's just kind of like a donation model, right?
Yes.
But then it's like you can see like over time there's less and less whales doing it, because obviously like like the rest of the other whales can just be like, okay, I'll just wait for like that one guy. I think it was Mark DMSL before, and now it's Molecular, and like they can always bank on that like one guy. And I feel like it's almost like how do you put it? So like whenever if that one or two whales stop being interested, then like your funding is just like kind of like all gone. I feel like it is. I don't know what the right word is. I feel like I wouldn't say unsustainable, but I would say that it. I would say that if you can align like the capital incentives in a sense that you can go to a whale and you can be like, okay, like you are helping BCH out, but then if this business works out, it's also going to be like, it's going to make you money. You're going to get your money back. And I think that changes the whole like paradigm of it, like quite significantly, from like, okay, I'm going to drop money into this project. I think it's really cool. And we'll end up with some like GitHub repo that has some like really useful stuff. But then like, I'm never going to see that money back. Other than like I hold like so much BCH that it makes sense for me to. And this is kind of like one of these funny things, because I've heard this again in the BCH community, that it's actually like really surprising how much whales don't actually like invest in BCH. Because it's like the ultimate like return on investment. You think about it, right? Like, okay, like you put money into it, and I think what it is just kind of like this tragedy of commons thing, where it's like, okay, like if I don't do anything, someone eventually will like do something. So I think like if you can change into like the ROI thing, suddenly it's like, oh, okay, like there's a FOMO thing going on there, right? Like I might be missing out on like the coolest wallet on like BCH or something, right? So, and then obviously if the wallet works out and they get users and there's revenue, then it's like, oh, you can like at the very least, I think like, a lot of times when people invest in projects, they don't really like, most projects they invest in, it's not really gonna like have the ROI. But at least I think the potential, it's almost like that thing you said about like, okay, like 1 in like 50 projects or something will work out, right? And it's like, I think like that's a really like powerful, like I wouldn't call it gamified, but that's a very powerful like incentive alignment that like, okay, and like at least psychologically it changes something, right? Like if you're like an investor or a donation thing, right? Like if you're an investor, the mindset changes that I'm not like sending money and then basically stuff's happening.
Yes.
right into a void. But like I send money, and then there's this kind of like different thing in your mind that like, yeah, but if the project like really takes off, like, well, I guess number one, I can claim you can claim that you really backed it, and number two is that you get to actually get more money than you invested in, right? Which is kind of like how everything in capitalism works. So
yeah, it is kind of the case that BCH is getting to that stage where it's starting to find its footing and it's doing well. And like you said, we had Flipstarter at the time just got the resources to the right place. And over time, also the community got a little bit better at avoiding getting scammed and putting money into the wrong things. And then after that, FundMe kind of leveled it up a little bit and showed that, okay, the app ecosystem was growing as well. And you can run things off donation models like I have in large part with the podcast. And that's great and stuff. But as you're saying, we really need to take it up a level in terms of the sort of business development side. And so BCH-1 is almost like a Y Combinator type of setup. And then I really liked it when you started talking to me about it as well too, because it fits very nicely with my concept of where we want to be at in 3 to 5 years as well, which is you need to provide, just kind of like countries do, both countries and large companies like Google, for instance, they have their internal accelerator projects, and then countries as well, they fund little entrepreneurial hubs and connect them up to the big banks to get funding and all that sort of stuff, where you want to have every step of that pipeline, right? Starting from one teenager in their bedroom likes BCH and has some cool idea for it. So then you need to get them the information and the resources, how to get started hacking a little bit, talking to the community. Then once they're at that stage, you need to get them maybe with like a FundMe, just a small amount of money so that they can see it's working. They then have a little bit of resources to play with. They can try some stuff. If they fuck up, well, not much lost. And if they don't, either way, they learn something new. And maybe then people who are further down the pipeline see potential in it and they want to bring money to it, or they start supporting that person. Then things go, then you have a little, setting up a company and stuff. So then that's where you kind of have like Blaze is kind of at that stage as well too. It's filling that very early part of the pipeline. Okay, we're coming in from other ecosystems, already got some interest in what's going on, maybe already got some skills or some other connections, but nothing's quite working yet. Okay, maybe I'll start here, maybe I win, or maybe I get a little bit of publicity. You have that. And then BCH-1 is like the next stage after that. Okay, now you've got something that's semi-solid. It's a little bit of a prototype. We're convinced that it could maybe work and that you know what you're doing at least a little bit. You've got a proactive mindset, all that. And then boom, then that starts to like take off a project and really bring it into the network. And then if that BCH-1 is doing that, then now we also have Bliss already ready. So that's nexus for people to meet and get more linked up in the scene. And then also to get some publicity at a hype moment when, BCH is doing a new upgrade. People are paying attention. And then an exponential, then it can scale up from there, because then you have the next year coming around, and who knows what other pieces we'll have. Probably some of it will then start operating behind the scenes. It'll be like once you're into Bliss, it's not necessarily all going to be publicly available, but if you've made it that far into the pipeline, we'll be helping you kick it off further and further. And then you have Blaze coming up the next year, which then ties into the previous year. The successful projects from last year can maybe mentor the ones coming through in the pipeline behind them. And then that's how we build a whole thriving ecosystem, right? That's my concept.
I'm totally on board with that. And if we can sort of synergize everything, I think the thing is like if you can imagine, like if the funding, we can increase the amount of capital that's coming into BCH like by like fourfold or something. So I guess maybe from like, I don't know, like 500 to 1 million right now a year or something like that, to say like 4 or 5 million. Basically then suddenly it's like, like for example, I hear some stuff like, Pat's expensive. But actually like being paid $100 to $300 an hour is really normal for like someone that good. Yes. Like he actually would make more if he worked outside of a BCH. So once we have that funding increase, I think what we'll get is we need more Pats, we need more Jonathans, we need more Callens, and then you also need to lower the barrier of entry for people. And then you get more money, and then you have like more people working, and then you just start like scaling. And this is also like companies that get funded, they'll have like their own marketing teams, right? They'll need to like build their own marketing teams, and all the marketing they do will have a peripheral side effect of boosting BCH, which is why I say like tokens are like a power projection tool.
Yes.
Because in a way, like all the people that build token communities, they have to market like their product or their token, right? And basically, as a side effect of that, they will always end up like onboarding and marketing like the main chain. So it's like this incredible tool to actually like get a lot of exposure if done right. And yeah, like so if everything synergizes and we can get like this sort of like, we can like match, get like closer to like the kind of scale they have outside of BCH. I think a lot of the things that right now, for example, like, I see so many guys in BCH, I guess, including me and you and everyone else, like working on like 4 or 5 different things.
Yeah.
Like it'd be when the scale is like bigger, you could have people that are like more specialized into just doing like one thing rather than, and that will make things like move a lot faster, right? Because you're just like you're like just doing one thing and just being really good at it. So yeah, definitely capital alignment I think is a really big thing. But I think we're in a good position because I think you also, I think like this is the right time, because if we say like we did this like we started like the Blaze and BCH-1 thing like 2 years ago, we just 2 or 3 years ago we just came out of like the chips aren't like the upgrades aren't there yet and so on and so forth. And like so I think we are, and I've been noticing like on social media like the coverage of BCH is kind of like people are kind of positive about it. Going back to the eCash thing, like I was reading like the eCash thing, everyone's just like, like this project's a fucking dud. Like I don't see that with like BCH. Like I mean even like some of the core guys are like, like they do some interesting stuff. Like that's I'm definitely sensing some of like I wouldn't call it propaganda as the wrong word, but some of
Promotion, yeah.
the stuff we're doing, like in terms of like really saying, hey, wow, like you actually, and it's based on truth, like I say
Yes.
this a lot. Like if you think of like UTXO chains, like what is like our competition, and BCH is actually like the best one if you really look at like the capabilities, the community, the fundamentals. It is just missing this whole thing of like kind of being a little bit like the big money, like or the stuff outside that can actually power fund our projects. They aren't really like aware of BCH. But if you look at it like what are UTXO? So you have Caspa, you have
LTC, they haven't really done anything.
LTC, right? That's like, I don't think that ever recovered after the founder. What was his name? Charlie? I can't remember his name. Yeah, he dumped his own token. I never came back from that. And Caspa, Cardano, which
Monero,
is a shit show, the scientific peer-reviewed bullshit that basically like their marketing is quite genius, because basically Cardano's whole like secret is that it's like they target like nerds, and it's like this like nerdy thing that doesn't like it's just like, oh, it's so complicated you can't even understand it. Like this is like Cardano's, it's like rocket science, right? But like nothing works.
Academic,
yeah.
Oh my goodness! As soon as I see peer-reviewed papers, combined with crypto, like you said, it's a bit of a genius angle. But I was instantly like, this is the exact because crypto is the opposite. Crypto is no peer-reviewed papers, just like
right.
Brutal free market capitalism. Let's just check some money into some chaotic, crazy fringe projects, and something's gonna just blow up. Like that's how you should be thinking about cryptocurrency. We're gonna do careful peer review, and according to this consensus of these 10 ivory tower guys, we've figured out that's nonsense. Like you look at mainstream science is a mess. Nothing is replicable. Like it's all these grifts based on funding to different people. You have all these academics sitting at university that are not exposed to sort of the brutal industry of what they're in. Like when I was at university, by far, with 1 or 2 exceptions, by far the best lectures I ever had were when they would once a semester say, okay, and now we're going to bring in somebody who is right now crushing it in the industry, and they're going to give a 1 hour talk. And they would come in and they would be like, all right, I had a look at the syllabus, like you were learning this, that, and the other. Like mostly that's bullshit. Like, that's not really going to help you at all. And then we'd get like 1 hour of this is what's actually, going on. This is how it works. This is how you would actually win, or just kind of like, okay, let's throw out a lot of the theory. Let's get down to brass tacks. And I love that stuff. And Cardano just reminds me of it's so they deliberately do that academic institution,
So
industry.
So I want to go back on that. So if you think about the UTXO thing, okay, like there's only really one successful Bitcoin fork, and that's BCH.
Yes.
There's no other. There's actually like people have forked their Bitcoin Gold or done loads of other stuff. There's only one. We are the most successful fork of Bitcoin. There's no There's no
there is no
third
second best. There is no second best.
There is no second best, and so it basically is Bitcoin, is the UTXO model, and we have programmability. We have stuff that basically they wanted to do but they couldn't do, and so then you look at that, and it's also the only sort of UTXO chain that is decentralized and doesn't have this central governance, right? So once you sort of look at the competition, it's everybody should be actually, and it's doing well, ranking wise, market cap. Once you kind of break it down, you're this is pretty much the best UTXO project in the whole space. I mean, discounting Bitcoin's price performance and obviously exposure and all that stuff, but yeah, if you really kind of look at it, it's I more people should be looking at it and being wow, there is really just another UTXO proof of work model that uses the exact same amazing tokenomics of Bitcoin and haven't deviated from that at all, in terms of the mining, in terms of the in terms of the mining, in terms of the block rewards and all that stuff, and the supply cap and the emissions and everything. It is actually you look at, you go on CoinMarketCap and you look at that top 100, BCH is actually really cool.
Yeah.
So it's just this thing where people aren't, and I think we're starting to see that change. People are starting to be oh wow, actually they've really persisted and they've really advanced, So I think there is a really strong case for people to be oh, it's sort of the secret in crypto that nobody knows about, right? And
Yes.
then we can get that message out once people realize, with VMware you can do basically all the stuff that people do on EVM on BCH. It's this is the, and obviously you're well aware of the advantages of the UTXO model versus the Ethereum account model, right? So if you really look at it, it's I can't think of any actual UTXO project that even comes close to Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, so I want to highlight what you said there about the quote-unquote propaganda, the promotion, the marketing that we do on BCH. And I'll just give away all the secrets right here for anybody who's listening from any of these other coins. They want to know how we did it. I've already, spoken about this, but here's how it is. Like you said, it's based on truth. That's really the key. Okay, we've done a lot of work. For instance, I make these big threads documenting everybody coping about how BCH sucks, even though they don't have any real complaints. It's just whinging, or it's just based on something that's the past, or it's irrelevant or whatever. I have the threads which are about how we've upgraded things that all people want and are impressed by, but all that stuff, I am so diligent about leaving not even a tiny little crack for somebody to say, oh, you lied about this, or this isn't true, or you can't back this up. Don't trust, verify, right? I know that if there's any little gap, somebody is going to dig into the repo at some point and find this is not open source, or with the decentralized bridge for smart BCH, it was just that one crack that then people can point out and focus on and blah, blah, blah. And BCH is not perfect. And it certainly was not perfect, especially a few years ago. But where there was those problems, instead of just copying and saying, oh no, you know, that's just haters or something, it's like we actually found and attacked those things. Oh, okay, there's not good promotion. Okay, so now we've started the podcast and fixed that. Oh, the wallet ecosystem is looking a bit scrappy. Okay, we've got Celine wallet, you know, PayData, all this stuff. Like, okay, we need a hackathon. Okay, now we've got that. And now you're saying about we need the funding. We need that. Oh, people don't like its reputation and branding. It's too similar and confusing with BTC. Okay, we've attacked that. Okay, it's not being represented at conferences. We went to Op Next just that one time. So this is just, it's, you know, really not any magic so much as if you are in another coin like that, what you need to do is get out of the mindset that when you see these same quote unquote FUD arguments that everyone tells you, that that's the truth. Like, of course, they're telling you from the outside and they're not, you know, necessarily going to say it in the nicest way. But the reasons people keep bringing up the same thing over and over and over and over to you again is because those are real concerns that people have. And if you always just go back to your mates and talk amongst each other and say, oh, well, everyone hates our project because of X, but that's such FUD. Well, the reason you're all coping together, it's not FUD. It's something that you need to have a very strong, solid, repeated answer for, and you don't have it. And it's up to you to fix that problem. So that's all we've done, you know, and like you said, other communities for various reasons have not been able to identify those problems and just consistently attack them until public opinion starts to change. It's not easy. It takes insane amount of hard work, but it does get results if you just do it properly, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so
well, that explains why your website has I call it the grand repository of like anything you need to like ask about Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Where did I get all those articles from? You know, I see what people complain about, what people ask about over and over on threads, and I write an article that explains exactly the counter arguments. A lot of the things in there say like BCH is not doing this perfectly, but XYZ, or here you can see that work is being done on it. Here's the game plan in 5 years. Here's where sometimes you just got to take an L and say, okay, well, this is not perfect. That's just a trade-off of another project. If you're interested in that, go look into this other thing, which might be better suited. And you just have to be relentlessly honest about that. And then at some point, just linking that to people on threads over and over and over again has got, because, and then people write back to me. I put the thing in the thread there, and then I know it's worked if they don't write back, because if it isn't, they'll write back and they say, oh yeah, this is a pretty good article, but, and they have like one small thing in a whole like 500 word, you know, essay or whatever. Like, okay, all right. So I go and I just tweak that slightly to clarify or to update whatever little small point they've made. And then the next person who looks at it doesn't have that thing to jump on. And eventually just if the answer is solid, then they can write back something salty, but them looking at it, anybody else looking at it, because just these guys have the answers. And at a certain point, that just becomes, you know, overwhelming. It just cuts through all the noise and the propaganda, basically.
Yeah, I just came to my mind that one thing that could be a very strong differentiate, because I always think, how do we differentiate ourselves from like other communities? One really strong thing about BCH is that and I think this happened with the group chat. Like there was a guy that came in and he was like talking about like farmers and onboarding farmers, and it's like one thing that we are very strong at is basically like just kind of like being really honest. I feel like we can be like the sort of everyman chain, like the chain for normal people and the chain for people that it's just like we're more like we could be cool in a way that we're not elitist. I feel like a lot of the other chains or even BTC, it is very elitist. It's very like, okay, like it's very like, okay, like it's almost like kind of like, you know, like banker douches, or like kind of like this VC thing, or this kind of like vibe where it's like if you don't get it, or you don't get it. Like, but like there's quite a lot of dishonesty. And I think like one of the really strong things about BCH is that you know, as a community, I think we value the truth quite a lot, and and you know, you could say that maybe that's why we don't do hyperbole or over like crazy, you know, overhyped propaganda like that much. But also like I think if we use the angle, the strength is that we are like very open and we're very honest. Like I think you don't actually see a lot of that in crypto. So I think that could be like quite refreshing for people. And certainly that's what drew me to BCH in the first place. And I'll happily admit that after I left BCH for a while, like I started like really missing how cool everyone in BCH is. Like it is a cool community, and I was like, wow, BCH is full of cool people. They just need money.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
And we just got to get that without introducing a load
yeah.
of scammers and grifting.
Right, right, right. That's
tricky
yeah,
part.
yeah.
All right. Okay. One thing that I wanted to hit on is, like we're talking about, we're being quite positive about BCH, but it is
Mm.
growing. We've seen, I've got a graph here on the slide of the TVL in Cauldron. It's just absolutely taking off up and to the right. This month, MUSD has passed 1,000 BCH TVL in minted USD and over 1 million in a 30-day volume on Cauldron. The metrics for engagement have been looking good. Shout out to Bitcoin Cash OG, who's just put up another fund me, and they've got stats of their engagement and so forth with the Twitter promotion they've been doing. That is also just like going up. Parity USD from Matthew has announced that it's going to be launching on December 4th, and we will get him on the show to talk about that once it happens. We're seeing maybe a little bit of the block size starting to go up. The average block size is transactions start to find their way on chain and fit together in all these different apps, like a little bit of the network effect starting. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit, on that. Where do you think, it seems like overall we're doing a good job and we just need to persist, but is there any particularly strong either bright spots or missing pieces beside what you're working on with BCH-1 that you think we need to address?
I think okay, I guess number one, definitely one of the things I guess you see me talk about this is like just the insane amount of money in DeFi outside of Bitcoin Cash. So we can like sort of this, a lot of this is like kind of BD stuff, like getting like, I think MUSD being on DeFi Llama, that was pretty amazing. But just getting that exposure and being like connected with like the larger, so like getting it on exchanges and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that is like a missing key piece. If we can even like touch like one, I can't remember what protocol I was looking at, just like some random stuff. And it's just like, oh, like some random protocol has just like 2 million TVL for some like bullshit or something. And if so we can even just touch 1% of the money that's in DeFi and like get it to like link with like cash tokens. Like there's so much money like in crypto. It's like it's insane. Like just insane, like how much money on it. And I feel like so this is the thing about like liquidity pairs, is that once you get to a point, for example, if you're like 200K or 300K liquidity pair, the issue with when you don't have enough liquidity is that people can't really play, because when people put money in, it moves the price too much, so they can't really like get into like a token. But once you get to a certain threshold of a liquidity pair, the whales can start coming in and basically like buying tokens without like fear of basically like getting destroyed by like the the slippage. And by the way, I want to talk about MUSD. One of the things people don't realize about MUSD is that's actually like a version 1. So they're going to be doing more work. So it's got like this really good adoption already, and it's a relatively simple stablecoin protocol, in the sense that like it doesn't have like stability mechanisms. It's you basically lock over collateralize amount of BCH. So but even that is like already like look how well it's doing. And so like that's V1, and they're going to be rolling out more upgrades to that. Parity, everything I read about Parity, it looks amazing. So I'm like really excited about that coming out. It looks like a really legit, really well thought out like stablecoin protocol. And I think once people can like have that option of like locking their profits or stuff easily, I do believe stable coins are going to be huge. I do believe that stable coins probably work better for like, like payments in some cases, or like and very importantly for DeFi, stable coins lets people like, oh, okay, like the token's gone up 300%, like I want to like just like sell
Lock in some of
30%,
that.
but
Yeah.
without right lock in some of the profits. So I think like that's like really that's really good. A block size increasing, obviously, I think that's great. I mean, I'm sure you would agree that we want people to be using it. I don't really subscribe to this whole like thing where it's like, oh, okay, like the knots, and
Yes.
the Bitcoin. Yeah. I don't. I see where he's coming from. I see where Luke's coming from, but at the same time, I do support like basically like, well, you want people to be paying fees and using the block,
Yes.
the block
Block
for different smart contracts or functions and stuff like that. And this is you got basically more angles for fee revenue for miners, basically, if you basically have more things. So it is cool seeing the block. So if the block size increases, but it's it's like more smart contract DeFi stuff and not just exactly just transactions. I think that's really cool because I think that it means that you've got like these business models basically running on chain, right? Oh, by the way, yeah. So on Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash OG, that's I think they're relatively new, right?
And it's only 3 or 4 months old, and it's already at 4,000 followers. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know who's behind it because this guy's got like super high output. So yeah, I love that. I love that X account.
Yeah. So one thing I want to touch on here, I've got community comment of the week. It was actually very interesting. We had your friend Somi, who is this generic crypto YouTuber hype type of guy. He made this quote, Bitcoin Cash has $10 billion market cap after a black swan record 36 months of bad PMI. And it has nothing to do with DeFi, NFTs, privacy tech, ZK tech, prediction markets, or any other invention of crypto. It's missing literally everything and still has $10 billion market cap. This should make you more bullish on the altcoins you hold because the best is yet to come, end quote. And then Seiji Nakamario replied, quote, you're early when critics claim the network doesn't have a bunch of features, and it does have those features. BCH going to melt faces when people start paying attention, end quote. And that really sums it up to me. Like, this guy, Somi, is actually a pretty smart guy. I've watched some of his streams. He does really fun and entertaining analogies about how everything works and stuff. And I know Luke Pryor, shout out to him, has been putting a bunch of time into trying to get his attention in the comments. Look at BCH, because he knows he's the type of guy who might figure it out and then suddenly become quite interested. But it's just amazing that people have this now attempts to dismiss BCH. Oh, it's just this old coin that is quote unquote it's somehow hanging around, but they don't know. Yeah. They don't know that all the work has been done. Literally all the things he says: DeFi, NFTs, privacy tech, ZK tech, prediction markets.
We have all of them.
I mean, it's all being worked on. It's already working.
So we got DeFi. I mean, we got privacy tech. I mean, we're doing some work on ZK, zero knowledge proofs. NFTs, it's crazy. It's funny because he's saying it's missing literally everything, but he's missing literally everything about BCH. But also, I find that really funny because it's like, oh, the black swan record of 36 months of bad PMI. Like,
what is that? Product market information? What is PMI?
Oh wait, that's a good point. I think it's just like some kind of like I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I assume it's some kind of price, like performance
metrics indicator, purchasing managers index. I don't know. If anybody knows, I didn't know that acronym.
But the funny thing I find about that comment is, okay, like you can argue Bitcoin Cash has been kind of like a stable coin, right? In the sense that it hasn't really appreciated, like compared to the Bitcoin BCH ratio, but like how many tokens have gone down like 95% or 99%?
Yeah.
Like you got some look at eCash, look at all these other ones. Like, I don't know what happened to Nexa, like
yeah.
No, but like you think about it, like think about it, okay, like it's not like think about like how many coins you just think of any coin from like, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago. I mean, I'm sure you can like go through the list and Engine. I don't know. All these coins are just like just they've gone to like nothing. So actually, just surviving and not going to nothing, and actually doing more or less a straight, slightly up line. It's pretty good performance. You can't look at a crypto and just go like, okay, like it launched like $1,000 and it never basically hit like $1,000 again. It's just like that's a really weird way of, especially comparing to all like the other coins that haven't done as well as Bitcoin Cash. I think like that's such a weird. And look at ETH, by the way. ETH hasn't done well. Like if you're on ETH and you weren't on BTC, you would have like lost like so much compared to just owning BTC, So like it's like everyone hasn't been doing relatively as well as BTC this cycle. So it's just like I haven't watched any of his stuff. You say he's a pretty smart guy, but that's just like, and
that's
I guess that shows
he misses on this,
Yeah, but also that kind of shows what we're talking about in terms of solving a signal layer and basically like presenting all these things. Like every week we showcase something like Cash Fusion, or like we showcase like NFTs, or we showcase like DeFi stuff. We showcase the stuff Paytaka is doing, and stuff they're gonna roll out on like Bitcoin bulls and all this stuff, or XO, XO from General Protocols. And like I think like once you get that awareness, people will start. Imagine if we can get to a spot where a guy like him looks at BCH and actually, instead of going, it literally has nothing. They go from that and they're like, this chain fucking chain fucking has everything. And it's like it has everything, but it's early. Like it's like stuff hasn't been like 100% developed yet. So that's a massive like upside potential, right? If you want to frame it that way, in a sense that okay, like you can go build your thing on like Ethereum or like Polygon or Avalanche or whatever, but those are already like people have already built so much stuff on those things. And like BCH, we've got the primitives, we've got the infrastructure, we've got like the early tools you can use to build all this stuff. That's like if we can get it like that, people would actually realize, oh wow, BCH is this chain with like insane amount of like potential. I think that would be really cool. Like if a guy, like I don't even know. I'd be really curious of like how he even ended up with that. Like is he some kind of
just spewing it off like
it's almost like he's paid. It's almost like he's paid to do like a hit post on BCH or something.
Nah,
and it's like that's like. You don't think so? Okay.
I think maybe it just didn't jive with him. Like these kind of YouTuber crypto type of guys, they're a little bit, they go with whatever's trending in the moment. And then there's also just a bit, they have like their 3 or 5 favorite projects that they keep saying, this is going to be massive. And then they have 3 or 5 that they always say, everybody loves this, but I hate it. Like you've got to have, to be a pundit, you've got to have a few like favorites and a few enemies. And then just stick to that formula. And BCH just is on the list of enemies more often because of popularity. It's a very easy thing to just write off. Oh, these big blockers, they forked off, and they all turned out kind of clueless. Like it's just the most NPC line, but it's just that's the situation that we're in. So I mean, I was looking at the chart actually, like you say about the price. BCH is about 1 year away from having like an almost flat 5-year chart. So there's once 2021 falls out of the window, once it's 2022 to 2027, BCH is about break even against BTC over that time period. And of course, interesting. The BTC guys, they're falling off with their argument like, oh, the price is always going down. What a shit coin. It's just dumped like every other coin, and etc. But like you said, there's a lot to be said for just surviving, just staying in the race long enough is enough, because if you stay in the race long enough, as long as you're still getting better, eventually that curve starts to turn around. Doesn't matter if BCH is flat against BTC for another 2 or 3 years, that's fine, as long as the ecosystem is growing. Because once it starts going up, and as long as there's a solid base for that, it's not going to stop, right? So I'm feeling very good about it, as long as we can just keep plugging away at this 200-to-1 ratio or a little better. And then, like you said, as more money starts to come into it, that'll just change the game right there.
I wonder if there's kind of like already a thing where some people that used to really believe in BTC are kind of seeing like almost all the stuff that we talked about like years ago, like you should really do this and do that, and now it's kind of like dawning on them, wow, like BCH
They were right.
was just, but it's like my game. It's just like it
ahead of
was
the
just too
curve.
ahead. Like, I have to have this conversation with a lot of people. I'm just like, I think the BCH community was just like about 5 years ahead of time. So it's like almost like the ideas were like too early. Like people weren't like thinking about like all the issues of scalability or why you would want to be able to like add more opcodes and that kind of stuff. And I feel like there's a kind of a thing though, maybe there's a zeitgeist going on a little bit right now with like the knots thing. They're kind of realizing a bunch of people are realizing, yeah, like these core guys are like, kind of a little retarded,
Jet's nodding a bunch. I want to get his
Oh, yeah,
take on
please.
this. He's clearly seeing something there.
Okay. Sorry, comment on what specifically?
Well, I just saw that was getting a big reaction from you. You were
Well,
like, yeah, they're starting to realize,
So first off, I think Moon Settler is my like canary in the coal mine. I check his Twitter account probably more often than I see what's going on in BCH. I'm just like, what's he saying about BCH? Because I think like he is a fantastic piece of marketing for the the people that want BTC to be good. And it'll be nice to have someone that's like, yeah, they did it. They did it. I tried this thing out on Blaze and it went fucking flawlessly, and we're just gonna continue to build over there.
Yeah, I saw him with doing the BitAuth IDE, and he was asking about something, and Jason was showing him how it worked, and he had something like, "Oh, I thought you guys messed up this, like you had it in the wrong, you increased the limits like in the wrong spot." But turns out it was just the naming or something confused him, and actually we had done it in the right spot. And so yeah, you're right. Like that's how Twitter works. People are organically overlapping. And so, yeah, it's past the point of dismissing it. It's past the point of hating on it. It's past the point of not knowing that there's something else going on there. It's to the point of like, let me actually try. And that's what I said about it all being based on truth. It has to be that we can actually walk the walk. It's not just talk. Like once they look into it, they're like, holy shit, this is actually all freaking amazing. And then, yeah, word starts to get around basically. So, yeah, you're right. I think that's what's happening.
That comment about like people realizing that the core guys are a little bit retarded, and that little pause before you said retarded reminded me so much of like Osho, that cult leader who was like, democracy is
it's regarded.
Yeah.
but the people are retarded. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty.
So who's Moonsetter? Is he like a guy?
He's been on the show a couple times. He's one of the guys in the BTC community that has a lot of credibility because he was really into CTV and covenants. And basically, over the last 3 or 4 years, he's had a bit of a, semi-friendship going with us, me, Callisti.
That's nice, yeah.
Whoever else, I guess, that was sort of talking to him a little bit. And 3 or 4 years ago, we said to him, like, look, CTV is not going to work out. You guys are going to be stuck battling with the hijacking and this uphill like nonsense and whatever. Like, take a look at what we're doing. We're doing, introspection, and we're doing the cash codes and all that. We told him all that years ago, and then it's just been a process of over time. He's slowly warmed up to being like, well, it's because 2 things are happening at once, right? On one hand, our predictions that they were going to get stuck, they weren't going to ship CTV, there's going to be endless nonsense, etc. Like, time just has slipped away from them. So he's seen that our predictions about that were correct, and he was getting frustrated with his inability to move the ball forward on that. And then at the same time, the stuff we were telling him, like, look, cash tokens is going to go great, like the next thing's already being lined up, Velma, whatever, that all then came to fruition. So it's happening in both directions. His hopes for BTC are not being fulfilled, and our promises for BCH are being fulfilled. And so between those 2 things, he has really rethought it a lot, and now he's quite curious and interested. He still hasn't, fully dived in. He's often says like, I just need to give it one more chance, or he's kind of going through an emotional grieving process, basically.
It's like this weird like Stockholm syndrome thing with like BTC. There's like so many. I can't remember so many guys I've met over the years in BTC, and they want to do all the stuff like the covenants and counterparty and the contracts and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's like obviously it's impossible because you've got like a 1 MB block limit and like all these like restrictions, and it's like like you say, I think like a lot of them, they always like have some kind of thing where they hope eventually something will change, but like nothing changes. So it's like but I find that so fascinating that a lot of BTC people actually like love that stuff that we're doing on Bitcoin Cash, but they just won't like acknowledge that to it's like the Stockholm syndrome of being in BTC too long, and like the mental acrobatics they kind of like. It's really interesting. Like the BTC maxi, like the mental acrobatics they go through to be like, oh, we can make this work on BTC, but it's like, dude, just like come on Bitcoin Cash and do it.
To be fair, there's to be fair to them, there is a couple of reasons that actually justifies their position. So one is that initially BTC did so well, so it's hard to look back at the history of how it's all gone and be like, it really is different this time. It's easy for us to say that, but it's hard to put up a convincing argument for that. Also, of course, there's a social element. If all their mates and everything that's going on with them, their information sources, the podcast they're listening to, if it's all like, oh, we're going to launch this, we're going to do this, we're going to, it's easy to stay in that circle of hype. So there's an element of that. And then also, of course, the price gains, if they made a stack of cash on BTC, then you feel like this is working and you've been reinforced in that way. You're not going to be rushing to like move over to BCH. Of course, the key is to divorce in their mind. They can leave their whole stack in BTC. They only need to sell $100 to get some BCH and then use it to make smart contracts and play around with, and then see if it's actually works or if it's good enough for what they want to do. And then if it is, it's a little bit by little bit. They don't have to dive into the pool. They can just put their toe in the water, but it's just a tricky thing for them to do because of all the acrimony basically in the past.
I feel like the vibe has changed a little bit. I mean, I guess time sort of washes stuff away. I feel like there seems to be like less of a like I also think like I think one thing I really like about the current state of BCH is we're no longer like really like the old BCH was really like just like hyperbole. It's like just attacking and very much like like you say about like the honesty thing, like just saying stuff. Oh, we have this on BCH, but we don't really. And it's just like I think like what's nice now is that we're kind of taking a more like evidence-based approach in terms of like addressing what people say at this, and then we just sort of factually tell them it's like this and that, and we're not there yet, but we're working on this. Whilst I feel like the BCH of the past was a kind of like had a more of a, you can imagine like from the other side, it looks more like, okay, there's like an agenda here, like to like undermine BTC or something. But if you go with that sort of evidence-based, just like talking about like the technology and talking about like various paths of doing things that you could do on BCH, and then things that we worked on BCH that we've advanced. This new angle is a lot more like likely to win hearts and minds than I think like how we used to do it.
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to the Ember token as well before I forget. So we launched this for Blaze. So the community is going to vote for the community choice thing, and we've done an airdrop of 5 Ember tokens to every Jessica and Velma holder. So if you're listening to the show and you are a Jessica or Velma holder, you can check in on those Ember tokens. The project that gets the most Ember tokens votes at the end of Blaze will get a 1 BCH prize. So you can be part of voting for that. But it has also been trading on Cauldron. It started at like $1 or $2, and it went as high as $100. Now it's about $20, $15, $20. So it's really just cool because firstly, I wanted to give everyone a reminder if they have a Jessica or Velma to pay attention to this, but also it's just how many different things are coming together to make this work. You know, the cash tokens, Cauldron, having the Bliss NFTs to do the airdrop to, all the tooling, all the wallets. Now, you know, Ember is trading on, you know, independently. And it's so exciting. I feel like this is where we start to get to the cool stuff. And I remember on the show, you know, 2023 or whatever, we were saying like, no, don't worry, so much cool stuff's going to be happening on BCH, you know, just stick with it a little while longer. And I feel like that payoff is well and truly underway. So I'm thrilled about this kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot to be said. Like, it surprised, especially Jonathan, how much interest there was in Ember. And there's already like been over 5 or 6 BCH of volume traded, even though we haven't really promoted it or done anything. You know, we just put it out there and then people were already getting excited about it. It's linked to the Blaze branding, etc. And so I really like your concept that maybe we can just link up a bit of this VC money with people being able to trade tokens or have tranches in some way, and then things take on a life of their own once there's energy and activity there, you know?
Yeah. And now you've done your own token. You can probably see like how it's kind of like this. It's like a propagation tool, right? It's like a power projection thing where you can use the token to sort of like do other stuff, and basically always like links back to BCH. Yeah. I mean, obviously I did like Spice token, so and a bunch of tokens. Yeah. Like once I started, and, you know, like the Spice token thing actually came about with like how do we like I think I called it reverse adoption. So if you tip people Spice token, they actually have to use BCH because like you get dropped. You need BCH gas, right? So actually, you need to like once you get dropped Spice token, you just set up a BCH wallet. So it's like a reverse adoption. And I feel like, I don't know, when you talk to I feel like I understand the things with tokens, like in terms of like, you know, it's associated with a lot of like pyramid schemes and scams, but I think like it is like a very, very powerful tool to really like expand an ecosystem. And, you know, for sure, since Bitcoin doesn't do it, or they only have ordinals, and ordinals kind of suck UX wise, we're in the perfect position to basically be the only UTXO chain that does tokens really well. I think there's no other chain I can think of that would execute.
Yeah, I wanted to check in briefly on our cousins in BTC as well here. I've got 2 different slides, but I'm going to kind of combine them. They're sort of a bit interrelated. One is that this week they've discovered with the release of new Epstein files from the whatever, you know, the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, they realized, oh, Jesus, these guys were funding the MIT Digital Currency Initiative, and Jeremy Rubin was messaging him and all this stuff. Which is like, anyone in BCH has known this for years. It was all in Who Killed Bitcoin. Like, it's just really obvious to us, but it's just yet again, like 5 to 10 years later, they're slowly catching up. I mean, there's already been so much
exactly like what we're talking about earlier, right? Like, it's like they're slowly kind of like realizing, oh wow, those guys are just like kind of ahead of their time. Now we're like finding out like basically all the stuff that they talked about like wasn't like, we aren't like Looney Tunes, you know?
exactly the conspiracy batting 100 or 1,000 yet again, but that's, you know, it is what it is. And then there's the second related part is Dathan Ohm, the NOTS proposer, has said already this week, the latest movement has been that their window, they were planning to do the activation. Firstly, they were going to do the reactive and the proactive activation. They got rid of the reactive one because it was not feasible, as well as a really bad idea. And they only had proactive for February 1st. But now that's already being potentially delayed until June or July because they think they'll need more time to build consensus or go through several iterations, which is completely contradictory because the whole impetus for it's an emergency. We need a soft fork as fast as possible to fix this before it gets exploited. So things are really just turning into an increasing quagmire as they slowly start to kind of clue in that doing a chain split or a soft fork was not going to be as easy as they thought. You mentioned it a little bit briefly earlier, so I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts on that part of the drama.
Not really. I mean, my gut feeling is that they won't really go anywhere. That's kind of my gut feeling. Like in terms of that, I feel like they just don't. Like I think about like what I was talking about earlier about BCH being like the most successful fork of Bitcoin, and like maybe actually the only one that's been successful. It was an insane amount of like effort to actually like launch BCH and get it together. And you need so much stuff. You need to align. There's a social aspect, there's the miner aspect, software. And I just kind of feel like I don't think they'll be able to pull it off. But that's my thinking on it. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I do. I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about the whole thing? I do sort of like kind of like side with Knots a little bit. Like maybe I just like the underdogs or whatever. But and obviously I don't like Core, so there's that. But how do you feel like do you have a side on this, or what are your thoughts on?
I mean, I've talked about it a bunch on the show, but the summary really is that the Knots guys are right about the hijacking. They've kind of clued into that narrative, and they're right about the need for a more decentralized mining ecosystem in BTC. So spiritually, I'm kind of with them, but the problem is they're wrong about everything else. They're so deluded about their chances of doing a soft fork, about whether or not quote unquote spam can be totally eliminated, about the legal aspects. Like they're just sort of conflating all that in this confused soup, which is often what happens when you have a quite fundamental part of your worldview taken out. You don't immediately put everything, all the pieces back together in a way that makes sense. Instead, what happens is like suddenly a lot of things that you were relying on being true are all in doubt, and probably the truth is a mix. Maybe some of them were true and some of them weren't, but re-putting that together in a way that makes sense takes quite a long time, and it also takes quite a bit of humility to think, what were the people telling me who knew that this was coming? Like, how did they know? What did they see that I didn't see? What people that I have been trusting have been ignorant in the same way as I was, or were lying to me. So between all that, it's a very confusing mess to figure it out. And of course, they are triply incentivized because they have literally their net worths on the line in terms of their BTC and everything. So discovering that it was all hijacked, their whole UASF thing was a complete scam.
Yeah.
Like you said, all the stuff that BCH guys have been telling them, not all of it was correct. And they need to pass that through, because they might have thought, okay, BTC is right and BCH is wrong, when it's not that simple. Actually, some of the stuff that the BCH guys were saying years ago was completely wrong. We're going to get to that in a second, but a lot of nonsense from BSV, the XCC guys, there was chaos, etc. But a lot of it was right, so finding those different pieces and putting it back together is just a mess, really. In any case,
I think what's good about the drama is it has caused like the BTC community to really like start like diving and start like really thinking about like what Core has done, with like Taproot and all these like things and all the consequences, like bad choices and so on and so forth, like they made over the years. And I think like it's definitely like I think the one thing Knots has achieved is definitely like started this like sort of like introspection in the BTC community, instead of the past thing where it's like, okay, like basically Core is amazing, Core is always right. And now we're getting some like multi-node action going on in VTC, which is kind of like what they were not supposed to do. So it's kind of
Yes, it is great to see. Okay, this ties in a little bit to meme of the week. it's a little bit of an accountability theme. I've got two that are related. One is from a Reddit post that resurfaced from 11 years ago. Somebody said, quote, if a Bitcoin is worth 100K at some point, so for context, this is when Bitcoin was about $1,000. So, quote, if a Bitcoin is worth 100K at some point, I will be very happy. But let me say this, if it reaches 100K, I will fly to where you live and give you an apology blowjob. Delusion is exactly the right word, as is basing future growth on past growth, all in the hope that you are not too late to get rich with Bitcoin. There's not going to be a 100x price increase from this point. It's reached a heavy price already. And by switching over the units like millibits, people have been associating the value to being close to $1. I can see 10K happening on pure speculation, but not much more than that. Come back to your free blowjob otherwise. That was you, why all the upvotes on December 11, 2013. So, end quote. Like, that's just really gets to the heart of it is, of course, this person has now deleted their account. They're not going to live up to their promises. But it's kind of like talk is cheap, you know? People can say one thing or another thing, and then just the internet never forgets. But also, it's like in hindsight, do you look like a genius or do you look like a complete moron? And that's kind of where we've been talking about things that the BCH community, some of the stuff we got right, is now starting to come to fruition, but sometimes it takes time to prove out. And the other one we have here is from Craig Wright in an interview in 2018, also to give a shout out to Decentralized Thought. He hasn't been active in a very long time, but I'm sure
that's Don Wonton, right?
Yeah, Don Wonton. That's exactly it. Let's have a listen to this. Is from his, he did this excellent interview with Craig Wright, who I think was
Isn't
a bit
that
drunk.
the one where he's like, is this the one where he's like, oh, I got all these Rolexes, you got nothing?
Yeah, it was.
Anyways,
yeah. It is. It's a great interview.
Okay.
This is a great clip. Let's have a listen to this.
It's very simple. We don't want a quick war. I said this beforehand. I want to burn them to fucking shit. I want to have no Bitcoin left with Roger, no Bitcoin with Jihad. I want them fucking broke. Thank you.
So
I want them to burn everything they own. Then we finish.
I can tell that you absolutely believe in, you are a very real person, Craig. I can definitely tell. But how long are you willing to wait this out? Because, what you could call it a hash war. 2020. Dear Lord. So, 2026.
I don't give a shit if no one can sell for 2026. That's my day.
No one can see.
It's very simple.
So there you have some big words by Craig. This was in like 2018, probably during the period before I think the actual hash war happened and tensions were at a high point, but the split had not happened yet, or maybe it was fairly recent. In either case, it really is just kind of an example of he was just throwing out, 2026. And you even still today have some BSV people like Craig promised in 2026, like they're still...
really? Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened with I haven't followed with the BSV community at all. Like, what happened with them? It's still like a thing, or
not really. I mean,
I see laughing. So.
There are definitely some, a few people still hanging on to their Twitter threads. I mean, of course, it's the irony of the fractal, right? The BTC guys are like, who are these BCH guys persisting year after year on a losing project as they just go to zero? And then that's the same way the BCH community feels about the BSV community. But basically, there was, we did an episode with Joshua Hensley actually quite a while ago now, but also another one. I'm just trying to think I think it was on the listeners. It was with David Shattuck. You can go back and watch that one, which was at the time when Calvin figured out that Craig had scammed him. And there was leaked emails where he wrote him, I was on a beach in Spain, and as I reflect on my life, and then he talked all this stuff about how Craig had scammed him and he wasn't going to give him any more money, etc. And then soon after that, they lost the Copa trial. They got wrecked in the Copa trial. Judge Mellor said, Craig's just a scammer. He's not Satoshi, etc. And a lot of the BSV guys fell apart. Ryan X. Charles came out and said, wow, I was in a cult. I had been wrecked by
Did
that.
he? Did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I saw he
And
turned to like Christianity or something. I don't remember what. I saw some like video where he's like clearly lost his mind.
well, he's on his own personal journey. I mean, you can look up. He's doing Earth Bucks. We had him on the show. Actually, it was good. He talked about the history and how he'd been involved in all these different things. And now, I was hoping he might get a bit more interested in BCH. But again, same as sort of the Knots guys, like all those pieces were ripped out. It's going to take him a while to put it back together. So yeah, he was working on Earth Bucks, which was his new blockchain, or whatever was catching his interest. But that's it. So things are really, as far as I know, are basically completely dead over there. They had that one cool site, Hodl Locker, that eventually went offline. Some of those guys abandoned into ordinals. Like it's just done, I think.
I think the craziest thing about BSV for me is that there's some like incredibly smart people that actually went over and they totally like believe like CSW is like Satoshi, and it's just wild. It actually just shows you like being smart doesn't make you immune to doing believing in retarded stuff. Like if there's one proof that like smart people are just as vulnerable, that would be like the proof.
Yeah, and it's really just a question of, it's subtle because it's the same. It makes sense why from the BTT side, especially back then, it was easy to look at this complete, clown show full of people who later would separate from, into BSV and crash land their own blockchain and all that. Like if you did not look into it and think about it clearly, it was quite easy to conflate the accurate stuff about the hijacking, about the nonsense with the block size, about SegWit being a bad idea, all these different things that were being said. It was quite easy to lump that in with this is all delusional Craig Wright, sponsored attack or whatever. So I don't blame people. I mean, I never conflated those things. So to me, it's quite obvious, but I can understand why from somebody else's point of view, if they didn't look into it as much or they couldn't understand the nuances of that position, then it would all seem like the same to them,
Yeah, I mean, looking at, number one, I've had more experiences with alcoholics.
Yes.
So now watching that video, I'm just like, dude, like he's totally like on the train, he's fucked.
Yes.
And then number two is watching that, I'm so glad like BCH is not that anymore. I was talking earlier about like we had a lot of energy, but it was like kind of manic,
chaotic,
and like like it's chaotic, and that is like what I'm so glad BCH is not that. It might have been a bigger community back then, but I'm so glad that it doesn't have that vibe anymore. Like, can you imagine like people that are not in BCH and they watch that, they're just like, dude, these people in BCH are fucking nuts. Like,
yes,
so it's really nice that's over, and like we're not the community doesn't have that vibe or whatever manic thing was going on.
Yeah, you want to be innovative and energetic, but without being necessarily too chaotic or off the rails. Like that. Okay, we got a message to the community just to wrap up the show. Obviously, you've talked a lot about a lot of different aspects of BCH, but just your free roll section to tell the community whatever it is you think they need to hear. What do people need to take away, the key point for the BCH community?
I think what I wanted to talk, what the key point I would like to talk about is basically I've realized coming back to the community and also being outside of the community is that I think like because of the way BCH was formed, fundamentally it's a community where people value independence like a lot, right? Like in terms of doing stuff like I want to do this, so I'll do this. And so like in the BCH community, like a lot of the projects or people I find, they're almost like they're kind of like preppers, like they're like in their own bunker, and like Peitaka's doing their own thing, and General Protocol's doing their own thing, and like I'm doing my own thing. And like there's some like you go into like the actual BCH developers, they work on so much stuff. Number one, there's kind of like lack of like a propagation. I think we talked about this before, lack of propagation of what everyone's doing, right? So we don't have a network effect happening of being able to broadcast like all the stuff that's happening on BCH really well. And number two is that because we have this, I almost see like BCH devs or people or projects, they all like are like in their own like bunkers. And recently I downloaded a game called Death Stranding, and basically in Death Stranding, like everyone's like, it's basically like, oh, the world's like ruined, and so you could say like the forks did a lot of damage on the BCH community in terms of like kind of like breaking up the network effect. And then you have like all these projects that are like people like in their own bunkers. And so what I would say to the BCH community is that like if we all like make a network to communicate and like network like all these projects together, like the sum is gonna be larger than just these projects individually. Like what I said earlier about like I feel like projects that have successfully like fundraised like outside, like they have investors and so on, share that knowledge. Like that'll be helpful for other people to achieve the same thing and build companies on BCH. And also like that's going to be good for you too, because when you have more companies on BCH, you have more networking effects. So if you teach how you've done certain things and communicate, and like I see a lot of like BCH projects where there's like these like little gripes, like, oh, like I had this like bad experience of this investor, or I don't particularly like this guy because he did this to me, like, and all these like little I would say like let go of that, because ultimately if we work together and unify as a community and like come out of the bunkers and like network with each other, what we'll achieve is going to be a lot bigger than just everyone individually doing their own thing. And I think like with Bliss and Blaze and BCH-1, I think that is hopefully what we can achieve and will achieve, is that we start getting people to really network and like talk to each other. And I think that's, yeah, because you'll have this aggregation effect, right, of like basically like people networking and then like like propagating each other's stuff and bringing that like to a more like once you connect stuff, then you can build the country, right? If everyone's like in their own bunkers and doing their own thing, but they're not like, they don't have this like interconnected thing, then you just have like this like kind of like thing that, okay, before we used to have like, I guess BCA, like Bitcoin Cash Association, and a bunch of things that like and like BCA got their share of like criticism for how they like use their money and blah 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 blah. But like I actually got into BCH because of Bitcoin Cash Association, because they really like networked everyone together, and that gave me an entry point of like, oh, how do I get into the BCH community? So I think if there's one thing I could say, I think it's definitely that. And if there's one thing like I want to achieve with BCH-1, is definitely to kind of like break people out of the bunkers and like network things together. So and I can't do that alone. That has to be a community effort that everyone kind of does it, to not be like, okay, like I'm building my piece of thing, and then it's like I don't really like I build my piece of thing, but I'm not gonna really like connect and this kind of thing. So I think yeah, that'll be my message.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I think we are starting to get there, like you said, with Bitcoin Cash OG, the BCH Bullet, stuff like that. We are starting to build a better ability to propagate a wider BCH message as a team. But of course, yeah, it's something we always need to work on, and it's sort of just like that thing as well. Decentralized does not mean disorganized. I always think it's funny where the BTC guys think we're decentralized because we're gridlocked on upgrades. That's nothing to do with decentralization. Of course, it is decentralized if nobody can make a change just because it's stagnating. But just because something is coordinated doesn't mean it's centralized, right? So
right, yeah, that's
the waves in the ocean, yeah. Same thing, right?
100%. Like being like I see this as like almost like a thing all the time, where people go like, oh, we can't do certain things because we're decentralized. And I think it's almost like a fallback, right? Like as in like, okay, like we can't do it because we're decentralized. But there's no reason why a decentralized community can't be coordinated and networked as well. Like it's like they're not like what's nothing to do with the price of cheese, right? Like
yes. Yes. Okay, all right. So quick shout out to our FundMe at fundme.cash/campaign/78. We're about 50% funded on the stretch of episodes from 166 to 175. So if you're enjoying the show, definitely go and send us some coins. We really, really appreciate it. We can't run the show without it. So shout out to some of our major contributors. Majamalu, This Is a Marathon, Cash Dragon, Bastion.com, Fair and Decentralized Twitter, at Cashdams, BCH for the win, DGN and FurQ, Sick Rap Anthem, #1 token coming at you, P2P, Cash Smash the State, greater than 40% APY, https://nwb.cash, and Brian Kanachi. Thank you to our donators and patrons, Ricky, Kyle, and HP, and our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. All the links and so forth are at bitcoincashpodcast.com. Try Selene Wallet at selene.cash. There was a new hot fix out today. So yeah, things are just getting slicker and slicker there all the time. It's day 2 of Blaze. So for everyone who is hacking at Blaze, maybe listening to this in the background, stick at it, and really looking forward to seeing more and more of the projects come out. We've had about 5 projects, I think, already submit like draft biddles. So you can already see a little bit of action starting to happen there, and looking forward to seeing more of those coming out over the next week. And yeah, congratulations to everyone on the Layla lock-in. Really looking forward to the full upgrade going live in 6 months. So it feels like another non-contentious, very well managed upgrade. So yeah, great job to the community there. Okay, any final words, mate? What do you want to say to sign off, and where can people find more of you?
Well, I mean, they should just follow the BCH-1. We'll be releasing the website. I think it's just like there's more work than I anticipated with like having to identify everything in the ecosystem, and basically I've been building an index of all the cool stuff on Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, I don't have anything else. I just wanted to add like, oh yeah, like that's pretty funny, right? Because everyone said like, oh, hard forks are like impossible to do, but here we are.
Yeah, it works. It works as long as you do the hard work to get everyone on the same page and communicate around it. I mean, that's the one thing where the BCH community is connected enough and everyone can stay on the same page. We just need to bring that synchronization up from the protocol consensus level up to the marketing outreach and the business, and tooling side of it as well too, I think. Jet, do you have any final shout outs?
To all the Blaze hackers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll second that. So go to bchblaze.cash or go to Dora Hacks and check out BCH Blaze. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the cool projects and stuff that people have built. So follow along with that. And if you're a Jessica or Velma holder, take a look at your Ember tokens. You can sell them off, you can stake them on Cauldron, or you can start looking into the projects so that when they're all finished and stuff, you have an idea of who you might want to vote for that community prize. Okay, thank you all for listening. Until next time.
Cryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Cryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all.
Cryptonana, exit liquidity,
dump it all.
hodl-nana, dump it all. From the day we arrive on the blockchain and blinking step into the trade, there's more to lose than can ever be won, more to dump than can never be saved. Influencers, tweets, and the noobs all follow, buying high, selling low, what a game. But But the boomers know, and Sailor, he knows that the dump is coming. It's all the same. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Some of us fall by the wayside, and some of us soar to the stars. But the influencers always win with the Lambos and their cars. So beware of the pump and the inevitable dump, for the cycle continues and the news get wrecked. Donana, exit liquidity, hot donana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hot donana, dump it all. Exit liquidity, dump it all. Dump it all. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit.